What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
Churning right along with the Barnhill Brothers best of list. This is a fun one.
Yeah.
Because we all love knockouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was some good ones, both in boxing and the UFC and MMA in general this year. Even bare knuckle boxing had some good knockouts.
Right.
Not really my style, but good knockouts nonetheless. So
I'll throw one in there. Triller, the Triad had a pretty devastating one as well.
Well, I hated to see Frank Mir go out like that, but
it was pretty interesting at least.
That was so honorable mention there.
Yeah.
We'll call that one honorable mention.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking about who had the best knockout of 2021, and trust me, it was really hard not to give this guy all of the awards just because of how good I really think he is. Yeah. But my knockout of the year had to be Kamaru Usman over Jorge Masvidal. I mean, he absolutely flatlined him. What we knew about Kamaru on the come up, the big complaint was this guy's very skilled. He's dominant against the cage and the clinch positions. He's very good with takedowns. His ground and pound is excellent. His cardio is good. He's athletic. He checks all the boxes except for one, and that's that he doesn't finish people.
Right.
Well, hold the phone because Trevor Whitman just got introduced into the equation, and now Kamaru Usman is starching people. That knockout of Jorge Masvidal was so impressive because, one, Jorge's an excellent striker.
Right.
We know him as the Kimbo Slice backyard bare-knuckle brawler who is a small little Cuban guy that was beating up huge guys in the backyard of Kimbo Slice's house and has evolved into an excellent mixed martial arts fighter who is contending for titles. But that straight two that basically twisted Jorge like a top and then dropped him dead in his tracks was probably the best kill shot of 2021 in my opinion.
Yeah, it was really, really different than what we usually see. Usually see somebody stiffen up like a board and then fall, but you don't see people literally just crumble. And that's kind of what Gamebred did. And, you know, it was all class after the fight. And I thought that, you know, Usman had the skills to beat him, but I didn't think he was going to beat him in that way.
Yeah.
So while, you know, sometimes some years go in favor of other people and somebody has to steal all the hardware. So Usman, while he's not running away with every single award we're given this year, he is certainly leaving with his hands full. And I think you've got a great one. As far as MMA goes, I can't think of another one. And when I'm trying to think of these fighters of the year, knockouts of the year, submissions, I also try to think of how important the fight is. You know, there was some amazing knockouts that happened in the prelims and the early prelims of the UFC cards and early prelims on the boxing events. And, you know, some people might not know about those or you might not have even seen them. I tried to do my best to give those their fair share, but when you're fighting for a title, when you're literally walking out there last, the pressure is on. You've sold these pay-per-view numbers. You've done all of this stuff. When you have all of that weight on your shoulders and you're still able to go out there and perform like that, you got to give it to those guys. Yeah. And maybe the technique isn't the spinning wheel kick that you saw in the early prelims. It might not be quite as
Joaquin
cool.
Buckley's, jump, whatever the heck that was.
Right. It might not be quite as shiny as that, toy.
Yeah.
But when you go to just like most important, most significant, most amazing, you got to go with one like Kamaru Usman. It might have been just a power shot. It might have been a straight punch, but it was perfectly placed and it was done at the very last fight of the night. So you got to give it to that man. I'm going to go in a different direction. Love me or hate me for this one, but I'm
ruffling some feathers.
Yeah, I'm going to ruffle some feathers. When you talk about magnitude, when you talk about putting an entire card on your back, when you talk about being the last guy to walk out, all of these types of things, they matter when you go in to talk about fights of the night. And when you're fighting somebody who's been in there, 5-time world champion, when you're talking about somebody who you're fighting on short notice, when you're talking about somebody you're saving the card with, you're literally, you don't need the money, you don't need this fight, you can kick the can down the road, and you still do it for all the people in the back, all the fighters in the back that really do rely on that paycheck. You got to give at least some respect to Jake Paul. And that's why I think that Jake Paul knocking out Tyron Woodley is the most incredible knockout of this year. And, the way he's flatlining these guys is really actually impressive. You don't see a lot of people put fighters to sleep straight down, falling on their face without their hands there to help them.
Scary.
It's really scary. Jake has some serious power, and we got to start giving this kid some credit at some point. I understand that we make fun of Tommy Fury's opponents' records, and for good reason. Jake Paul can also get that same treatment because if you look at all of Jake Paul's opponents leading up to their fight with Jake Paul, their combined record is 0-0. Except for Tyron Woodley, who was 0-1, only for the rematch.
If you count MMA, 0-6.
Right, yeah. But anyways, you do have to look at that a little bit. But Jake Paul's also not this guy who's super long in the tooth and super experienced in boxing. He's in there at 4 and 5 fights into his career doing things that people only dream of doing it in a career, and they do have years and years and decades under their belt of training and fighting and competing and dealing with pressure. Jake Paul is doing some things, and love him or hate him, he's helping the people in the back. I mean, talk about Amanda Serrano. Imagine if she didn't get to fight that fight 2 weeks before Christmas, and all the fighters on the undercard that he pays really well on his cards, they didn't get to fight because he decided, well, Tommy Fury's going to duck out of this one, so I'm going to duck out too. No, he decided to take a fight against a dog in Tyron Woodley who wanted nothing more than a rematch with this kid that beat him. And, while the fight was a little bit sloppy and it wasn't the most entertaining, that knockout punch was vicious, well-timed, well-executed, and in my opinion, one of the most impressive knockouts we saw this year.
It's very impressive for the level of skill that Jake possesses currently.
Right.
What he did to Tyron Woodley was he read his tendency, which Tyron, like anybody who hasn't spent a lot of time boxing or even striking for that matter, because we know Tyron comes from a very grappling heavy background, even though he's got heavy hands, his pure striking is really not all that crisp. Tyron has a tendency to reach for punches. When we talk all the time about how when somebody's punching at you, even though it seems counterintuitive, if you want to block and parry it, it needs to be done just an inch or two from your face, because once you start to reach for the punch, a good skilled striker, think of Israel Adesanya, for example, all the feints he throws, because he wants to see what you're going to do. If you're starting to reach for a jab, he's going to fake the jab and come right around the corner for a hook.
Right.
Now, in no alternate universe does Jake Paul do that as well as Israel Adesanya, or even close. But his game as a boxer is getting better. He read Tyron's tendency. He baited him with the body shot, which got Tyron to reach down for the body shot. He even looked at the body, and then he came over the top with a clean knockout. Yeah. And anybody that says that was fixed or that Tyron walked into that, I would just implore you to try to walk into a shot like that without flinching or making some sort of tell that you're purposefully about to eat a shot because you've been paid to do so. I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form happened. I believe Jake Paul read the tendency of Tyron well, and he capitalized on it. Yeah. Now, obviously, it wasn't the magnitude of Usman walking out as the champion of the world, the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and taking out a guy who had earned his way into a title shot in Jorge Masvidal. But much like Deontay Wilder, when you take somebody who is young and athletic, who hasn't boxed before, and they start taking it seriously in their early 20s, they can become good boxers. Deontay Wilder, it took him, from 21 until about 27, 28 to become kind of a household name and a world champion. I don't believe that Jake Paul will have that quick of a rise because he's not quite as athletic and powerful as Deontay is. But we have to get comfortable with the fact that Jake Paul is becoming a decent boxer. Yeah. And Jake Paul is going to be around for a little while. And Jake Paul's going to step up his level of opponents little by little. And it's going to be at a slower pace than most people who want to see him get knocked out hope for. But he's not going to be dumb about it. He's going to do things the way that he knows is appropriate for him and his career. And I think we're going to see him stick around for a little while. And I think we could see by the time he gets to be about 29, 30, if he's still wanting to do this, actually being a pretty damn good boxer. So I have to give him credit.
Yeah, and you got to really admire the fact that he's now calling for fights with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Anderson Silva, who might not be a decorated boxer, but he certainly is a decorated striker. And
Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in Mexico.
Right. And The fact that he's calling these guys out it speaks volumes, because none of them can say in their 5th professional boxing match or in their 5th fight they were fighting people with those types of resumes and wins and whatnot under their belt. So Jake Paul's doing some things. He's ruffling some feathers. I know a lot of people are angry about the sideshow, the circus that is Jake Paul, but he's doing a lot of things for boxing. And as of right now, there's less people than fingers on this hand that are more exciting in the sport of boxing and doing more for the sport of boxing than Jake Paul.
Yeah, I would agree. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Obviously, Nick and I went 2 completely different directions with this pick, but we would love to hear what your thoughts are on Knockout of the Year. As always, drop us a comment, smash that like button if you haven't already, and if you enjoy the content, we really appreciate a subscribe to the channel. Until the next one, have a wonderful day.
Peace.